Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the weekly live sales training session that I'm doing here. I'm doing these every week, and if you can join me live, then great. I'm very happy to hear you, or very happy to have you. Glad to hear that you heard about this and you want to show up and learn a few things. I'm going to leave these recordings up through the end of the week, and then on Saturday morning, I'm putting them into my online platform. This is premium content that I am updating weekly in the paid kind of premium subscription portion of the Rethink the Way You Sell network. You can find that at rethinkthewayyouSell.com, and the premium portion is called Deeper Thought, which kind of ties to my branding a little bit. That is, these weekly training sessions will be archived there. And so you'll be able to go in and really just spend 15, 20 minutes per session, just kind of learning a few concepts, kind of hearing me explain things the way I think they need to be understood better. And people seem to be enjoying these, appreciating them, and putting things to use to make more sales. So thanks for being here. Today, I want to talk about your pitch. And there's a problem with pitching. The problem with pitching is that it misses a couple of vital elements in the sales process. And we don't think about this because we're in such a hurry. And most salespeople, and I do my best to slow down. I'm actually pretty good at it now. I decided fundamentally, probably 12 years or so ago, that I was no longer interested in just showing up and pitching to someone that I just saw for the first time, or regardless of whether or not I saw them for the first time. Like if I had something to say to somebody and I was prospecting in person or even on the phone, I had that bird in the hand, so to speak, right? Like it's easy to fall into that feeling, but it's really not the case because you don't really have a bird in the hand in that situation. You don't have a prospect who's ready to hear you, who's ready to speak to you. You have someone who has recognized that you're there, but you're interrupting them. They're in the middle of something else. How are they going to give you the attention that they need to give you in order for your message to land? So I decided a long time ago that I was no longer going to do that. I decided that I was no longer going to be in a hurry when it came to making my sales calls. I was no longer going to force the process. And I think one of the biggest things that salespeople do to shoot themselves, their own selves in the foot, is trying to force something that doesn't really need to be forced. We have this feeling that everything's got to happen yesterday. Our manager wants results yesterday, wants the sales reports yesterday, wants the pipeline report yesterday. Our shareholders want results last quarter. But I think what we need to do is instead of be so caught up in what we are not delivering right now, and we need to instead focus on what we need to deliver in the future. And I made this a very conscious decision. I even talked to my manager about it, and he didn't love it when I brought this up. But I said, look, I might miss a month. But if missing this month means that I'm setting myself up to hit the next 5 quarters, I need you to be on the same page with me that that's a better outcome, right? And I see this a lot when it comes to messaging and it comes to cadence and it comes to, really the prospecting process and even into the sales process. Sellers are so convinced that they need to be acting, that they don't take the time to think about what they need to do first in order to act efficiently and successfully. Now, I don't remember which book I read it in, but I know it came from Jeffrey Gitomer because his voice just resonates in my head. Salespeople are not willing to do the hard work up front to make the selling part easy. And when I finally took that advice, it altered the trajectory of my career. So what I want to do in this lesson today and in this little talk today is instead of you being concerned about how many people you can pitch, or instead of you getting so excited as soon as a prospect gives you the time of day that you launch right into how you think you can help them, I want you to stop instead. And if you think you can help them, then I want you to ask them to commit a few minutes to you at a later time. I know this sounds revolutionary. What do you mean? They're right here. No, I touched on this just a minute ago. They can't give you their full attention at that time. In most cases, in almost all cases, the overwhelming majority of cases, they can't give you their time right now. So maybe they have 30 seconds for you now. Maybe they have 2 minutes for you right now, and you're sure you can take that and turn it into 5 minutes because, well, quite frankly, you can't get your point across in 2 minutes or less. Trade that 5 minutes right now for 10 minutes next week. What's that going to do? It's going to allow you to understand what the meeting is going to entail. It's going to help you understand and plan for what you need that meeting to be so you can answer the 3 questions that most sales reps can't answer. What am I trying to accomplish here? What's the next step that I want to ask for? And how am I going to ask for that next step? Right? Those are important things. Most times you can't answer right off the bat, particularly when someone answers the phone or answers the door when you're not expecting them to. So give yourself that advantage there. It also allows you to get their full attention, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. You get their full attention so that your message has an opportunity to land, right? They can do something with it. They're not distracted. If what you're selling doesn't require someone's full attention, think about what that means. What are you really selling then? You're not selling any kind of change. You're selling an afterthought. It requires their attention. Give them the opportunity to give that to you. What this also does in your planning, and I'm going to talk about this as well, is it allows you to spend some time because you're not in a rush. You can create the necessary context and tension, most importantly, in the sales process. Because without any tension, there's no reason for anybody to take the next step. So when you just show up and deliver your pitch as quickly, as hurriedly as possible, you eliminate 2 of the most vital parts of the sales process. You getting their attention and you creating the necessary tension in the process to encourage them to take the next step. So let's talk about this. You need your prospect's attention. You need to have this, otherwise you're not going to really get any response out of them. You're not going to allow the space in you're not going to create the space in your prospect's mind for what you have to say to land, for what you have to say to have any kind of an impact. I remember making sales calls. I had all of the necessary attributes that we're all taught that we need, right? You need to be known, liked, and trusted, right? I was known, liked, and trusted. And I walked right in sometimes the side door of the office of my prospects and my customers. They knew me. It was great. There was no big deal that I walked past everybody else who was quietly and patiently waiting their turn. And I walked in the back door to talk to exactly who I needed to talk to. And in my case, they were orthopedic surgeons. So I'd have a conversation, you get a handshake, a smile, how are things going today? And since they weren't expecting me, and since they had a lot to do, like every executive that you're trying to get a hold of right now, they would just kind of keep doing what they were doing. And I'd come in and I'd ask a few questions and get some partially thought out answers, and it would just be I would wonder why my sales calls wouldn't go anywhere. And the thing is, when someone is not giving you their full attention and you showed up without an appointment, you are just further reminding yourself that you are that interruption and makes you hurry, and it makes you feel as if you're even less adequate than you are. And so think about those factors that just move ahead of you. Think about those factors that are really working against you when it relates to you trying to sell anything. So what if instead of meeting your customer, what if instead of knocking on that door and seeing if they're available and then they come just to say hi, instead of trying to jam your proverbial foot in the door and work your way in, say, hey, I was in the neighborhood, or I decided to call you this morning because I have something that I wanted to tell you about. And I know now is not a good time, but look, this is really going to be worth 10 minutes or so of your time. And if it's not worth 10, I promise I won't take an 11th. But I think that most people, my experience has been that with most people who look like you, with businesses that look like yours, it's really worth more than that, right? A lot of people are actually interested in taking 30. So I'm only going to ask for 10. And if that goes well, then we can schedule another meeting for you to learn more. But I really think you're going to benefit from having this initial meeting with me. Well, Jeff, I got a couple minutes right now. No, I know you got a couple minutes right now, but I'm asking for you to give it the attention. If you've got 5 minutes for me right now, I know you'll have 10 for me next week. That is such a simple mindset shift. And the commitment on their behalf to give you that time is huge. It's a tremendous momentum builder for you. And it sets all the expectations that I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. It sets the expectation that they are going to give you their undivided attention for a small period of time. And if that small period of time works out and appears to be favorable to them, then maybe they will be willing to give you a little bit more time shortly thereafter. And it gives you the opportunity to prepare. It gives you the opportunity to do the necessary homework. Rather than trying to learn everything you can about every prospect you're going to pick up the phone and call, why don't you pick up the phone and call them with something a little bit more general, and then ask for a smaller meeting, and then do the preparation that you need to in the week or so that you're giving yourself to prepare. Think about that. How much more impactful will that be? For me, it was night and day. For me, it was the difference between languishing in a territory for a while and really not quite understanding why things weren't working to all of a sudden I tripled my business in 16 months. This is the kind of thing that sets up momentum that you may not even be able to perceive right now, and that's why I am really encouraging you to do it. The other thing that you miss when you pitch, and I alluded to this a couple of minutes ago, is you don't create the necessary tension in the sales process. Tension is a stimulus to act. And I'm not talking about just finding pain points, although pain points are often the things that we look for. You look for a change that they want to make. Whether or not you define that as pain is completely up to you. I think people buy nice things and expensive things sometimes for reasons that are only related to pleasure. But if you want to focus on pain, that's fine. You want to focus on the problem you're solving, that's a better way to look at it. What your solution provides for your prospects, it's a really good way to look at it. But you've got to, at some point, help them understand where they are right now and where they want to be. You need to understand that for yourself. You also need to help them understand that. You can't do that in 30 seconds in an elevator. You can plant the seed in their mind that maybe you have something to help them with, but this 10 minutes of dedicated attention. And by the way, if you've paid any attention to the work that I'm doing about discovery, you'll know that 10 minutes isn't enough. And I'm not suggesting that 10 minutes is enough, but 10 minutes is enough for you to at least get a feel for what they're digging into, for what they're up against, and an opportunity for you to kind of propose a way that you might be able to help them, at the very least to say, look, these past few minutes, I've only asked for 10 minutes and I promised I wouldn't take more than 10 minutes. But my goal for these 10 minutes is to help you decide whether or not it's worth us talking for an hour. It seems ridiculous, patently foolish to a lot of you watching this right now for me to suggest that this initial prospecting phase could last 2 weeks, right? Potentially, if you go a week between meetings, it could be 2 weeks before you actually get to discovery. What is it worth to you, however, to have the actual interactions that you're engaging in mean something? You know how hard it is to get someone's attention at all? That's why you don't want to delay the process. But the fact of the matter is, because you're not willing to delay the process, you are wasting those opportunities because you're in such a hurry. Stop being in such a hurry. Get their attention, and then with that attention, create a little bit of tension for them. Ask just a couple of questions, a couple of those, what I call level 1 discovery questions. Ask them some questions that will create a little bit of tension, that will help them to understand that you know something that they don't know, and they'd probably be a little bit better off in their business if they knew some of the things that you know. That's what I want you to do. That's what I want you to think about doing. And then with that next step, you can get into a more formal discovery with the runway and the momentum you've already created. If you don't have their attention, you can't prepare to have a meeting like this. And if you don't have a meeting like this, you can't create enough initial tension in that process to have a more thorough discovery process. That thorough discovery process being something that we know, well, you'd better know by now because I've been saying it for months, you know is the difference between top performers, people who close a lot of business and have and develop loyal customers, and everybody else who's just out there talking to anybody that'll listen for 30 seconds and then wondering why people don't buy. Now, here's a pro tip for you. I want you to skip the slide deck. Now, when it comes to pitching, when it comes to, look, you've probably memorized your 30-second quick pitch, your elevator speech, whatever you want to call it. You've probably memorized that, and that's fine. But when you actually get to that 10-minute meeting, please, please, please do not bring a slide deck. I'm just curious, what about this particular prospect situation makes you believe that you know everything you're going to say as well as when you're going to say it in the order you're going to say it in? Come on. When is the last time you had a great conversation, a productive conversation that you could script out to the minute before you had it? If your answer is any more frequently than never, then I want to hear from you. Send me an email, jb@jeffbajorek.com, and let me know that you've got this down so much, so well, that you know everything you're going to say, and you actually know what your prospect is going to say in response to it, and you've got this down. If you can show me that, I will show you someone who is replaceable. That doesn't make you good, that makes you replaceable. Don't do that. I want you to remember that your prospects are not engaged by another slide deck. I want you to remember that your prospects don't want to be qualified like another number. They want to be recognized as a human being with unique and nuanced problems. And that you do not demonstrate any expertise or flexibility in being able to, solve unique and nuanced issues because you can rattle off all the slides in your PowerPoint deck without even looking at your own screen. Come on. As salespeople, we need to be better than this. You have to be more confident than that. You leaning on a slide deck, you just insisting that this is going to keep you on track and it's going to make sure that you know all your points. There's no way that your canned pitch deck from the marketing department is going to have all the bullet points in it and all the necessary, highlights in it that are going to relate just to your prospect. Nothing makes your prospect feel like another number, like a canned pitch deck. Now, I'm not saying that you don't use visual aids. I'm not saying that when you have that initial 10-minute meeting that you don't, rely on slide 4 because that's really at the heart of the matter. That you don't skip from slide 4 to slide 7 or 22 because, based on the initial discovery that you've done, these are the points, these are the features, these are the differentiators in your solution that are going to make the most impact to them. Right? So I'm not saying don't use visual aids, but I'm saying is your deck is a crutch. Your deck is you painting by numbers. And there are 0 masterpieces that are paint by numbers. So I want you to take control. I want you to take responsibility. And I want you to recognize what it is that your responsibility is as a sales rep. That your responsibility is as a professional seller. Someone who goes beyond just getting paid for what they do. Someone who takes their profession seriously and seeks to improve. You're better than your deck. And more importantly, your prospects deserve better than your deck. So before you decide to just show up and throw up all over your prospects, whether you are an established seller who's been doing this for a long time and is wondering why their results aren't as good as they could be, or if you're someone who is brand new in their field, in their territory right now, and is looking for some standards to judge themselves by, is looking for some guideposts in order to know if they're headed in the right direction, ask for their undivided attention, and if they can't give it to you right away, they probably can't. If they can't give it to you right away, ask for some time next week. It's okay to slow down your process by a whole week. On a long enough timeline, that's only a blip anyway. Secondly, make sure that you create a little bit of tension in that early stage. And you can't do that with a canned pitch that you just deliver as soon as you see somebody's face. So do not skip over the attention. Do not skip over the necessity to create tension. And lastly, if you are relying on your deck as a crutch, you need to get rid of that thing and start walking for yourself as soon as possible. Hey, thanks for being here. I hope I've inspired you to think a little bit differently. Tune in again next week. Right now I'm doing these at Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and you can follow me. I lay out my live schedule for the week in my Sunday newsletter to my audience. You can sign up at my website, jeffbajorek.com, and you can also join my free community at rethinkthewayyouSell.com. I'm hoping and looking forward to connecting with you soon. And before the next time, or in the meantime, but before I talk to you again next, just make sure that no step is too small as long as it's headed in the right direction. Just make sure that you keep moving forward, and we'll get better together.